I think horror's gonna be okay. I think horror movies going into the future, with the low budgets that are required to make these things, they don't need to make insane amounts of money. They probably don't even need to be released in theaters half the time, but it's nice when they do. Abigail is a delightful little comedic horror film that we really need, but we don't need an oversaturation of. But it's fun to have these when we get them, so long as it doesn't end up like the 80s hair metal wave where, oh wow, listen to Poison, these guys are awesome, let's have 100 more bands make the exact same music. Surely we'll all be as big as Poison's nothing but a good time. Oh, look, there's Jet Boy with Feel the Shake. Oh, that's a great song right there. Oh, there's Hollywood by what's his face over there. Oh, look at Poison, they're making Every Rose it was his thorn with the power ballads, and eventually there's so much of it that it's inevitable that we're going to get tired of it. We're going to get tired of it. Horror is no stranger to such trends, shticks, and ideas. We have plenty of J-horror remakes, for example. We had so many of them. And for a while, like with The Ring and the first Grudge, they were fine. We enjoyed them. They were nice little films. We would also watch the originals, and they were also very good, probably even better. But The Ring is also a very entertaining film in and of itself. The Grudge is a very entertaining film in and of itself. But then we started to make more and more and more. We had one missed call, and it's like, what is this movie? Oh, look at there are mouths for eyes. Ooh, spooky, and we're getting and the trend fails because you did it too much. Everybody tried to copy you, and there was no more originality. Films need originality. They need some semblance of it. They have to have an original idea that is refreshing. That's something that a viewer who puts the movie in or watches it in the theater goes, you know, it is a horror comedy, but this idea is not something that I've ever seen before. And this one, admittedly, is one of those refreshing new ideas in an old genre. It's also released through Universal, so you know if this is going to be a super horror, well, maybe it might be connected to something from Universal's horror monsters repertoire, and you would be correct in assuming so. It has Dracula in it. Well, not necessarily called Dracula. No, he's called a different name because he always has different names. He has many names. Dracula has many names over many centuries. He's got to have a new name every century, otherwise people start to question things, you know? And so, who is Abigail? Well, to explain who Abigail is going to spoil the entire film. Well, then again, actually, the trailer kind of spoils it, too. This movie is something that you need to see without watching the trailer. You should not watch the trailer. I did not watch the trailer. I learned absolutely nothing about this film when I came across this. When I watched it out of pure intrigue, because of looking at the cover of the film, or looking at the back cover. The back cover really is all you really need to know about the movie. Radio Silence, the filmmakers behind horror hits Ready or Not, Scream 2022, and Scream 6, bring a brash and bloodthirsty new vision of vampires with Abigail. A heist team is hired by a mysterious fixer to kidnap the daughter of a powerful underworld figure. They must guard the 12-year-old ballerina for one night to a net of $50 million ransom. As the captors start to dwindle one by one, they discover, to their mounting terror, that they're locked inside an isolated mansion with no ordinary little girl. Now, the only thing that you need to remove from this back case description here is the word bloodthirsty new vision of vampires, bring a bloodthirsty new vision of vampires out. Just bring a brash and bloodthirsty new vision of horror. How about that? Because you don't want to know about the vampire part before going into this. You want to be surprised when you learn who Abigail is. You want to be surprised when you learn who her father is. You want to be surprised. You don't want the trailer or the back of the case giving it away. We want to know that there's something strange about Abigail. We want to know that there is something off about her. But what's off? What's strange? What's going on? That's the intrigue. That's the pull. Trailers and the people who make these trailers need to start realizing that trailers need to pull the audience in. They don't need to give away everything that the film is going to have. You don't need to summarize the film. Trailers aren't meant to be summaries. They're meant to be attention grabbers. They're meant to be intriguing. They're meant to catch your interest and make you want to watch the film to find out more. But when we learn that Abigail is a vampire, because obviously this is in the trailer, so it's already been spoiled, it kind of doesn't really have as much of a charm anymore. Once you learn the twist, because the trailer already gave away the twist, you kind of fall flat on your face full of egg, and you go into this knowing what's going to happen, and so I guess you're just here to see the friends we made along the way. I guess we're just here to see how or what kind of vampire, or all the vampire powers, and which kind of lore we're going to, because they do play around with this. The film does play around with the lore. It does play around with all of that stuff. And while I say you need to go into this film without being spoiled, I've already made my disclaimer on this channel that I spoil everything on this channel. I expect you to have already seen it, I expect you to have already watched it, or I expect you to not care. That's my disclaimer in my About Me section on this channel. So, you've already been warned, and I'm warning you again. They already play with the vampire shtick already. They do play with the tropes and the ideas, because the remaining people in the house, when they're trapped in there with the vampire, they don't know what the vampire is or what kind of weaknesses they are, so they go off movie tropes and things like that. So they try to think, oh, we need sunlight, oh, we need holy water, oh, we need stakes, silver, or things like that, you know. And they try to come up with all these other ideas, and they try these ideas out one by one and find out one by one all these ideas do not work. It's a shtick that has happened before in previous films, because there are way too many vampire movies out there, and they do play at figuring out which kind of vampire and which weakness this vampire has. It's a shtick that happened in the sequel to Dracula 2000. I think it's called Ascension. Dracula Ascension. I think that's the name. Or is that the third name? Either. I get the names of the Dracula 2000 trilogy mixed up a lot. The sequels, at least. Because the first one's obviously Dracula 2000. There are 2 sequels to that film, and each film has Dracula played by a different actor, so that's kind of messed up. But either way, the sequel to Dracula 2000 has a bunch of med students with a vampire. They have captured Dracula, and they're trying to figure out weaknesses to him. So they play around with ideas, and one of them pulls out a bag of rice. And they throw all of the rice onto the ground, because Dracula's apparently OCD. He has to count the rice before he can pass. You know, so he has to look at all of the rice and all that stuff. It pulls from folklore and all that stuff, and I like that. I like when movies try to play at this type of stuff and see which weakness the vampire has and which folklore is just a bunch of hooey. And now, since thankfully they already knew that we probably knew about the rice counting trick, since that's already been done in a movie, they don't play with the rice counting trick in this, even though I think throwing it out here, this movie would have been fine, because I doubt that many people have seen the sequels to Dracula 2000. I have, and I have all 3 of them. I may have to talk about them sometime. Either way, so they play around with a lot of the weaknesses, and sunlight's the one that really works, and I love the idea with it, though. I love the way sunlight works in this. They just explode. The vampires explode. They don't just burn, they explode. Immediately pop when sunlight gets onto them. It's very funny, and I love that. There's shticks about familiars and slaves, and how if you half do the vampire trick about biting them and they survive, but if they don't drink your blood, then they become your familiar or whatever, and they're your slave, and you can puppet them. It's a good shtick, it's a good trick, it's a good story. I like the characters. Everybody in the film, they're all criminals, so you know that you're not really supposed to be rooting for them, but you can't help but root for them because the bad guy, the vampire's probably done far worse things than these white-collar criminals have. So while you don't really feel too entirely sorry for them, you do feel a little bit sorry for them, going, maybe this is a little bit of an excessive punishment for this, And then you have the main character who you have to feel for, who you have to feel sorry for because of all of the emotional things that they show you regarding her. So they do that to get you to feel, but either way, Abigail's a very fun time. It's a horror comedy, there's a lot of comedic shticks and aspects. There's a lot of overacting in places, but in many places it feels like it's a stage play. When you're watching an overacting stage play performance, when you're watching a stage plays, do people watch stage plays anymore? Stage plays are really fun. They really are. They could be really fun. They make stage play adaptations of movies, too. Have you seen the Evil Dead stage play adaptation? It's a musical, and it's very entertaining. It's very, very fun. But either way, it kind of feels like a stage play at sometimes. The actors overact and all this stuff, and you expect them to be standing on a stage in front of a group of audience. You expect a laugh track half the time. That's the type of acting sometimes you see in their performances, but it's very entertaining. It really is. I think Abigail is a fun time. I haven't seen Ready or Not. I haven't, but I have seen the Scream movies. I've got every single one of them. They're very good. The first one's always going to be the best. I may have to make a review about the Scream series if I haven't already. I probably have. I've just forgotten about it after all this time. Either way, the Scream 5 commits a very terrible sin. It does. Scream 5 commits a sin that is unforgivable. It really is. It's unforgivable. But Scream 6 is serviceable. It is fine. I like the new generation of Scream characters. I like them. The actors that play them, and their performances, they're very serviceable. They're very entertaining. And they fit in the world. And they fit in the new generation of horror. Because I've seen these actors in the Scream movies, the newer ones. I've seen them in other horror movies. There's one that I'm going to be talking about later on that I've seen him in the Scream movies first, and then I get to see him in this other horror movie, and I'm like, he's gonna go places. This guy's gonna go places, and it's gonna be fine. I think horror's going to be fine in this nightmare world state of movies that we're in, where all of these huge budget films keep making flop after flop, not because they're bad movies, but because most people just don't want to go to the theaters anymore. They want to watch it on streaming, but they can't make their money back when they go on to streaming. It doesn't make the money back as much. And so we have to sit here and wonder just how are we going to reconcile this. I've already submitted plenty ideas. I've got one of them right now that I could throw off the top of my head, improv style. If you have a film with a big enough budget, then keep it in the theaters and keep it off streaming. Don't even make it digitally purchasable. Keep it on streaming for months, maybe 2 months. Not keep it off streaming. And keep it in the theaters. Keep it on theater screens for 2 months, right? 2 months, right? And then once you take it off, it does not touch streaming services for maybe a year, maybe 2 years. It doesn't touch them. Doesn't touch cable for at least a year, maybe 2 years. After about 4 or 5 months, put it onto hard copy home video release, meaning that the only way you can watch this film and get a digital copy is to buy a physical copy, right? So you have the theater experience, you have the physical copy, and then after another 6 months, then, and only then, after our money has been made, will you get it on streaming. That is how you save the big budget films, is by keeping them off the streaming services, keeping them off them until after you've made your budget back. Because you ain't making it back if you throw it on streaming. You ain't doing it. It ain't gonna happen. But yeah, that's an idea. And watch Abigail. It's a very fun movie.